Hey, Pastor Josh here. We're reading Acts chapter 24, verses 1 through 9. And Satan will always accuse you and accuse me. And when we are being accused based on our gospel presentation, based on the fact that we're a Christian, people are for some reason putting us down. It is not ultimately them that are putting us down, it's Satan himself. And so Paul is going to find himself in court. He's going to be in Caesarea at this point. He's standing before the governor Felix. And there's a guy named Tertullius that is going to be accusing Paul of all kinds of terrible things. Now, as we'll see, is that some of these things are actually based in reality. They actually are happening. But the way they spin it, as often happens in the political sphere and even in the courtroom, if we're honest, the spin that is being added to it gives a different flavor than what is in reality true. So we always have to remember that the enemy, Satan, and the dark forces of hell are very smart, they're very wise, they're very cunning, and Satan will always accuse us. So let's take a look at our reading, chapter 24, verse 1. And after 5 days, the high priest Ananias came down with some elders and a spokesman, one Tertullius. So they brought the big guns. They brought a lawyer, somebody that's going to be able to speak real good in front of this Roman governor. If you remember when when that Apostle Paul finally makes it to Felix in Caesarea, he says, well, we'll wait till the high priest, we'll wait till his accusers actually come. And it is of note that the high priest himself came, Ananias. It's not that he sent a delegate. He himself came to speak against the Apostle Paul. They laid before the governor their case against Paul, and when he had been summoned, Tertullius began to accuse him. And here we know that even though we might be accused, we might be put down by people in the world, ultimately, when we are attacked because of Christ, it is not them that are attacking us. These are actually fueled by hell itself. So remember that. That is a sin for us to avoid. It is a sin for us to even make sure that we are fighting against, because this sin will happen to us. People will accuse us wrongfully and push against us. Since through you we enjoy much peace, and since by your foresight, most excellent Felix, reforms are being made for this nation. He's lying. Actually, if you look at some of the stuff that Felix did, he was a poor governor, and it's why he gets ousted. Even in our text, Felix will be replaced by someone else. And so what he's saying is not right. Most of the Jews do not agree with what he's saying, but they're doing a little buttering the bread before they eat it. And so they're saying good things about Felix, but they don't believe it one bit. Verse 3, in every way and everywhere we accept this with all gratitude. Again, this is just showboating around. Verse 4, but to detain you no further, I beg you in your kindness to hear us briefly. We won't keep you long. We're done telling you about how great you are, and we're going to tell you briefly what Paul has done. Verse 5, for we have found this man a plague, one who stirs up riots among the Jews. Now, indeed, Paul did cause a riot or two or more. He did stir up some trouble, but ultimately, that is not the Apostle Paul's fault. He didn't purposely stir them up. He just preached Jesus Christ. He even left them. Paul had never once been on the active attack against the Jews. He didn't get the Christians together and say, "Oh, let's go fight them with sword and spear. Let's get our shields together and let's go fight." No, they didn't do that. He did not stir them up. He preached Jesus Christ, and this is how they responded to it. They indeed were the ones that were being ridiculous in these mobs happening in all these areas. And because he's speaking to a Roman governor, he's wanting to make sure he understands that these problems are happening throughout the world. And it is true. Paul has gone all over the place, all the way over to Greece, Macedonia. He has caused these things have happened because the Apostle Paul has went there. And he says he's a ringleader. Just the terminology, right? It doesn't say he's the leader. He's the ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes, these people that follow Jesus of Nazareth. Verse 6, he even tried to profane the temple. Not true, right? Because Paul went to the temple. If you read back closely, he went to the temple. He was under a vow in a way to show that he is not totally against the law of Moses. No, he believes that the law of Moses is good and correct. And so he was in the temple worshiping the Lord, completing a vow. but he did not really profane the temple. But what do they say? We seized him. By examining him yourself, you'll be able to find out from him about everything of which we accuse him. And Paul is in our next video going to give he's going to give his view of things. Verse 9, those surrounding the Jews also joined in the charge, affirming that all these things were so. As Christians, we do have to remember that people will come against us. And ultimately, that we must be prepared for that. I pray that has been a blessing to you, and I'll see you in the next video.